Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp, working towards the weekend. Hopefully that work week is in the rearview mirror. If it's not, we'll get you there right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Taylor Sharp back there on the ones and twos, and fired up. You're hanging out with us. In 15 minutes, usually we have Preston Geist. Going to sit this one out this week. Sam Spiegelman going to join us. He covers recruiting for Rivals. Does it kind of on a regional and national basis, but LSU's got a big junior day coming up tomorrow, so we'll talk to Sam about that. LSU in Texas tomorrow from the PMAC. I've got a column up on LouisianaSports.net right now. It says it's do or die for this LSU team, and you may have already written them off, and that would be reasonable at 1-6. But if they're going to do anything this year and make anything interesting, it's got to start tomorrow against the Longhorns. They'll also be honoring a really, really good basketball team tomorrow, and we'll talk about that in the second hour. Collis Temple III, who was a member of the 2000 LSU team that won the SEC, made the Sweet 16. We'll talk with him in the second hour. Also got my LSU baseball position preview for today. Because we've got a weekend coming up, and I've got a piece on LouisianaSports.net that's coming up tomorrow, and because you know the characters that are involved, we're actually going to combine shortstop and third base on the radio side of things today and talk about that at the top of hour number 2. So lots and lots and lots to do here over the next pair of hours. Let's get started the same way we start every single day. That's with the Genesis Opening Drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Things continue to move in the Saints coaching search, and with the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, kind of the entire league has huddled up on the Gulf Coast. And last year, this is the time of year where you got Clint Kubiak signing with the New Orleans Saints as the offensive coordinator, and the thought is maybe there's an opportunity for the Saints to reach a deal with their next head coach. That has not happened to this point. There are reports that are surfacing day over day about the progress of the search, and the most recent is from the Athletics' Diana Rossini, who's kind of been on the forefront of this Saints coaching search. She said on her podcast, Scoop City, that Kellen Moore may not want to join the Saints because he doesn't like the quarterback situation, doesn't like Derek Carr as the starter for one more year, not totally enamored with Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener at this point. That potentially could be a deal breaker for Kellen Moore. But she came back and said she believes that it's possible that Moore has come around on this issue with a belief that he may be able to get New Orleans to change course with their quarterback situation. Now, y'all know how I've approached this coaching search really from the outset. And it's been a little bit different than a lot of what I've heard, which has been doom and gloom. And I'm not saying that doom and gloom is wrong. I'm just trying to be a little bit more measured here with what I think about the process of this search. I think that it's reasonable to suggest the Saints have approached candidates they were interested in, and those candidates have not reciprocated interest. That's reasonable. I would also suggest that this is not like free agency where the coaches that have said, thanks but no thanks, are proven commodities. They're really not. Outside of Mike McCarthy, you're looking at kind of some upside guys who have never sat in the chair before. And certainly Kellen Moore would be in that category. So I have not flown off the handle and suggested, okay, the Saints are a disaster, worst situation in the league, nobody's going to take this job, the organization is doomed. Like, y'all know how I've approached it to this point. And with the Kellen Moore thing, there was a part of me that was going, okay, if he says no, and the Saints flew up there to talk to him, like, the optics are getting worse, and that's very difficult to argue against. But I've been saying from the start, like, it's about the result, not the process. But if the process yields this consistent result over and over again, it's hard to ignore it and to overstate the rough nature the franchise is in right now. I think that's the nicest way I can say it, okay? But there's another side of this, that if the Saints listen to Kellen Moore and say, okay, we know that what we've done is not great, and we've got a guy that we think has some real upside. We've enjoyed our conversations with him, and he thinks what we've done at quarterback stinks. And then they hire him with the understanding that he's going to rip this thing down to the studs and change the way they're doing things. That may be the breath of fresh air the Saints are actually looking for. No matter if they hired Mike McCarthy or Joe Brady or Kellen Moore or Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or anyone, this was not going to be a great football team in 2025. I don't know anybody that's arguing against that. You could probably find Derek Carr. He'd probably argue with you on that. But I haven't talked to Derek about it. So anybody else that I've heard suggests this is not going to be a great team next year. So here's kind of my stance at this very moment. If we understand the Saints aren't going to be good next year, and you're going to hire Kellen Moore, who's not enamored with the quarterback situation, and you may actually move on from Derek Carr in this offseason, well, now all of a sudden, this is a scenario that I find pretty plausible. You hire Kellen Moore, you cut Derek Carr, you take a bath in dead money with the salary cap, you're bad next year, next offseason this time, some salaries start rolling off the books, some of this old, expensive personnel starts to move on, you're picking high in the draft, you've got a coach with a vision who's able to go find the next quarterback that he wants, and you completely rebuild this thing from the start. And if we're being candid, have we not thought the Saints should do that for like 2 years now? All of a sudden, if you've been asking for a rebuild for 2 years and to stop doing salary cap the way that you're doing things and to stop kicking the can down the road and stop extending old players and stop dumping money and trading off draft picks and start an actual rebuild, if we're on the precipice of that actual rebuild, well, what are we complaining about? That's what you actually want. And if you've got a coach that you might hire who's saying this is what you have to do, and the Saints actually listen, whether it's because they want to or they realize they have to because everyone else told them go away, well, you've got to your result. Who cares about the process? It's got to be a rebuild. And if Kellen Moore is the one to make Mickey Loomis and Dennis Lauscha and everybody else in that building realize, hey, this is what it's got to be, well, we're getting there. What do we know about Mickey Loomis? That he didn't want to fire Dennis Allen until Gail Benson finally knocked the door and said, fire this guy, you just lost to the freaking Panthers. And he went there reluctantly and fired him. And if it takes all these coaches they've interviewed saying, no, we're not doing this, this organization is in a terrible spot, and finally Mickey goes, well, if Mike McCarthy said that, if Aaron Glenn said that, if Joe Brady said that, and if I keep knocking on all these doors, young guys, older guys, defensive guys, offensive guys, and none of them think this is any good, well, that's the consensus. I'm the one who's doing things wrong. Maybe I need to change because now Kellen Moore wants to do it differently. I don't care how Mickey Loomis gets to the conclusion. I don't care if Gail Benson's got to come knock on his door or he's got to get told no by 4 coaches. But if you finally get where you're trying to get, well, then we've accomplished something. Maybe this is the shakeup that needs to happen. I realize this is a little bit of a sunshine point of view here at a time in the Saints organization where there ain't a lot of sunshine. But it's the reality. It's not like I'm changing my tune here. I'm saying, like, wait till we get the result. I saw a little bit of a shift in the way the Saints did business last offseason. If we see a bigger shift in this offseason, you know where the direction is. And there's no guarantee tearing it down to the studs and rebuilding it is going to work. It never works in Cleveland. It never works in Jackson. Like, there are plenty of places where it never works. Tanking does not automatically mean you're going to come out on the other side. Not everybody is the Houston Astros, who intentionally sent the organization down the toilet for 3 years and then made the AL Championship Series at a very minimum for 7 years straight. That's not guaranteed. You can be the Sixers. They hadn't won squat. They actually made a big deal out of the fact they were tanking. So it doesn't guarantee success. But the way the Saints have been doing things was essentially guaranteeing, at best, mediocrity, And at worst, a situation where you're looked as the most untenable situation in the entire National Football League. So while it's reasonable for Saints fans to sit back and look at these reports and all these coaches saying no and say, oh my goodness, we're never going to get out of this. That's a reasonable thing to think when you're a fan with that much passion as the Saints fan base has, how frustrating this could be. But if you want to just take a step back and look at the other side of things and go, maybe this is what actually had to happen. The Saints aren't going to be good next year. The direction has to change. And if Kellen Moore is the guy who's going to figure that out and force that change on the organization, while admitting I know it doesn't guarantee anything, it feels like it's the best dose of medicine for this franchise. That's the way I'm thinking about this right now. We'll see. Nothing's set in stone. Kellen Moore's got a pretty important game coming up next week. Just so happens to be in New Orleans. I don't know when things are going to happen. Maybe he picks up the phone this afternoon, calls the Saints brass and says, I'm out. And then you're looking around going, okay, Mike Kafka, you want the job? Darren Rizzi, you still got a parking spot here? And we'll react to that if that's the case too. But right now, we don't have anything set in stone other than the fact that there are reports saying Kellen Moore may be coming around, assuming there can be changes made at the most important position on the field. We'll see. That's our opening drive presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you're looking for Saints coverage, you can find it at louisianasports.net. Ross Jackson's got a piece up on the top of the site right now. Said, report, Moore not sold on Saints job. You can read Ross's thoughts right there. You can also find my thoughts at Hunt on Saints on YouTube or wherever you find your sound. Hunt on Saints, all Saints coverage all year long. We come back. We're going to chat with Sam Spiegelman. It's junior day at LSU. There are a couple of high-profile in-state guests that are coming to LSU's campus this weekend. What are LSU's chances to land those guys? And who else can LSU expect in a big weekend for the class of 2026? That's all coming up on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com, and that makes your shopping experience a lot easier, at least to begin with. You go to the website, just start surfing around. Look at the sedans, look at all the SUVs. You see something you like, start the process. Get in touch with Genesis of Baton Rouge. You can do it online. Have one of their brand ambassadors come to you, whether it's at work, got a little bit of time during a lunch break, you can take a test drive. They can do it for you. Got a little time at home, take a little test drive, they'll drive to you. It's just about convenience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you decide after that test drive, hey, I think this is the car for me, well, that's awesome. And you never have to go to the dealership to make sure that happens. You can sign an e-contract. They can do delivery right to you. You never have to set foot on the lot, and you can be in a Genesis of Baton Rouge. And if you do that, you get a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty plus 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. It's all part of the experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
First, we want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Chugging right along here, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're presented by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Check out that menu online, corksfishandshrimp.com. Big junior day this weekend for LSU football. Sam Spiegelman covers recruiting nationally for Rivals and Yahoo Sports. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Friday. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sam, how are you?
I can't complain, hon. How's it going on your end?
It's going quite well. Let's talk. I want big picture first before we start talking about LSU's junior day. We know that the transfer portal is all the rage these days, and Brian Kelly was one of the coaches who was very, very open with the fact that they were going to build this program from the high school ranks and rely a little bit on the portal. And somewhere over the course of the last 8 months, his tune has changed, and LSU obviously went really hard in the transfer portal after the 2024 season. As far as high school recruiting goes with juniors, is it still the frenzy that it always was, or have you seen some programs kind of cool on 16 and 17-year-olds?
No, I think to your point, it's a more big picture effort with these college football front offices, if you will. Brian Kelly is following a similar trajectory as, Ryan Day this time a couple of months ago when they decided to bulk up their transfer portal budget, go out and get some of the best players in the country, including the quarterback they just won a national championship with, Caleb Downs on the defensive side of the ball. And, yeah, Ohio State competes for national recruiting titles every single year. They're in the mix with the top 5 or so class year in and year out, and that's the way that LSU is currently modeling their efforts. LSU has continued to recruit at an extremely high level. That we know. They just signed a top 10 class in 2025, and the state is loaded with talent for 2026, 2027, 2028, and beyond. And LSU is always at its best when they recruit their home state, which they're on track to do really well in 2026. Of course, to compete in this national landscape, you need to be doing both at a really high clip. And what we're seeing BK and the Tigers do this offseason shows that they're in it to win it. And they got a product that should be in the mix for a playoff spot next year if these evaluations go correctly.
Let's talk about that loaded state that you were talking about in 2026. A couple of guys in the state, Jamar Brown and Blaine Bradford, are expected on campus this weekend. So tell us about those two guys as prospects and how you feel LSU sits with those two.
Yeah, let's start with Blaine. Blaine Bradford is the number one safety on Rivals. He's pretty consensus top safety in the country, no matter where you look. He's a Rivals 5-star. He's from right there at Baton Rouge Catholic. He missed the majority of his sophomore season due to injury, and he came back in the state championship game, had a game-breaking interception, nearly returned it to the house, and then as a junior was absolutely stellar. This camp season, he worked out at Bama, Ohio State, LSU. at 6'2", 205 pounds, clocked a 4.40. He actually almost picked off Bryce Underwood during the 7-on-7 portion of LSU's camp. At this point, he is probably the most coveted safety in the country. We know his older brother Jacob signed with LSU in December. LSU is going to be in it until the end with the state's top safety. Oregon and Ohio State aren't going anywhere. Alabama is also in the mix here. But really, Ohio State in particular and Oregon, with getting him on campus for the first time earlier this month, have both made this one a little bit more interesting. And then Lamar Brown is the number one interior offensive lineman in the country. He actually was meeting with Brian Kelly earlier today, who was at U-High. Lamar Brown has been an early LSU lean for the early portion of his recruitment, but as his junior year came to focus, we saw the Aggies kind of chipping away, and they got him on campus, I think it's 6 times since June, and they're scheduled to get him on campus 2 more times before an official visit. LSU has a little bit of catch-up to play with Lamar Brown. I think they're not only recruiting him to play on the offensive line, but he's maybe even more open to playing defense. So Bo Davis, Blake Baker have been getting involved. They'll get him on for a junior day visit this weekend. They'll try to secure an OV. We know that A&M, Alabama, Oregon, and Tennessee are all in the mix to host Lamar this summer.
Very, very interesting that A&M could come into to U-High and make some significant inroads there. That's not something that I had on my my old proverbial bingo card there, but here we are, I guess. Speaking of some other folks that are expected on campus here in the class of 2026, some LSU commitments, Aiden Hall as well as Kenny Darby, a couple of guys from inside the state. What can you tell us about those two?
Yeah, Kenny just led the state in receiving this past season for Airline High School over there in Shreveport. He got his offer from LSU at the back end of the season, wasted no time committing to Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, and those guys. And Darby's been a regular visitor since getting that offer. Even before, it was it was one of those situations where that was the offer he was waiting for and didn't waste time jumping on it. But everyone else caught wind after he committed. Texas A&M threw an offer. Tennessee, Alabama, schools across the country have been trying to catch Kenny's attention, but he was scheduled to go to Alabama last weekend. Instead, Coach Sloan, Coach Kelly showed up at Airline High School. He shut his recruitment down. He'll be back in BR this weekend. That's a really good sign for the like I said, this really talented 2026 class. Aiden Hall from Edna Carr, a part of this early 2026 class, committed this summer with teammate Big Rich Anderson. We know Edna Carr were the state champions this year. A lot of schools across the country still have a lot of interest in Aiden Hall. He picked up an offer from Auburn today. We know that Ole Miss has been in his recruitment for a while. Oregon really likes Aiden Hall. Getting him back on campus is just another huge step for LSU, holding on to this prize commitment out of the state of Louisiana. We know they'd love to pair him with Blaine Bradford. That would potentially give LSU 2 of the top 5 safeties in the country right from their backyard. They're going to have to hold on for the rest of this roller coaster, but Aiden Hall hasn't visited anywhere else, despite a lot of schools coming through Carr trying to get him to.
I'm curious as far as commitments go. In this world of NIL, and I realize that revenue sharing is coming, so maybe it doesn't matter as much, but are you seeing less early commitments from juniors, whether early in their school year or later in their school year? Because once you do that, you may kind of shut off the bidding war a little bit. Do you find that are players that are waiting a little bit longer?
Actually, quite the opposite.
Really?
Because you're seeing kids commit early. They find the school that they think is the best fit. They lock in their spot and they try to shut things down. Even if they want to shut things down, you have this period where coaches are on the road. You have the spring when coaches are back on the road during spring practice coming by the high school, and then you have official visits that coaches are saying, why don't you just at least come visit here, take a look at us before you sign on the dotted line and make sure that, X school is where you want to be. And sometimes the school will say, go out and see what else is out there and make sure that this is where you want to be too, because we haven't even touched on the element of the transfer portal. And, we've seen kids be on campus for days before hitting the portal. So we live in a very, unique time in terms of college football athletics and the way that transactions goes. So you might get you still get a plenty of early commitments, and once in a while, I would say they stick. But we're seeing a more common approach where we're seeing probably 2 commitments for a high-profile kid in the 4 and 5-star range. Not everyone, but there are a good chunk of kids that'll make an early decision. Then they will basically go through a second turn of this process through these summertime official visits. And then, of course, you have always the in-state pushes for schools like LSU, like Auburn and Alabama, like Texas and Texas A&M across the SEC, where if there's someone who has a breakout senior year, the home state is going to try to their best to try to keep them in state, even if they're a little bit late. We've seen it at LSU. We've seen it all over the country. So there's different phases of these recruiting processes. Trust me.
Yeah, that in-state kid that blows up happens every single year. You never know exactly where it's going to come from, but certainly in Louisiana, that's somebody that's always going to pop up late in the process. Sam Spiegelman's our guest, national recruiting analyst for Rivals. Elijah Haven has gotten a lot of attention, as he should, in South Louisiana, and there was news earlier this week that he signed an NIL deal with a car dealer based out of New Orleans. What do you think about the recruitment of Elijah Haven? We got a long way to go, as he's just a sophomore at the Dunham School here in Baton Rouge, but how big do you think this has a potential to get?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be. I don't want to say it's going to be to the same magnitude as Arch Manning, but much like Arch, you're talking about not only the number 1 quarterback in the country being from South Louisiana, but potentially just the number 1 overall player in the class. Elijah was absolutely fantastic his first year at Dunham, just being the best player on the field, each and every Friday night, and then we saw him just take a massive leap forward as a sophomore. I think he already holds every single record over there at the Dunham School. Not only did they play for a state championship, he put up, I think, over 500 total yards, gave them an absolute chance to win down to the fourth quarter. At that position, the high-level development that he's showing, the character of the kid, and I think that the way that his recruitment is drawing the eyes of coaches from, these powerhouses across the country. He's been at Michigan. Been at Texas A&M, he's been at Alabama, he's been at LSU. This is, I don't see this being a very dramatic recruitment by any means. We know that Derek Stingley went through the Dunham School and had a very tempered recruitment. It was, pretty standard. I kind of expect the same approach. Neil Weiner is still the coach over there, and he has things done a certain way, and the way that the Havens go about business is very, very mature, very smart, diligent approach. So I think he could be someone who commits early. I think he'll explore his options. I think LSU is not only very much involved. I think that they're the early team to beat. But Louisiana has 3 really talented quarterbacks in its backyard this year, for 2027 rather. 2 of them hold offers, and the third is the little brother of the starting quarterback, Colton Nussmeier, out of Dallas. So it's going to be an interesting roller coaster for Joe Sloan and BK to handle. But right now they're in a good spot with the number 1 guy on their board.
He's Sam Spiegelman. You can find him at Rivals. He's a national recruiting analyst for them. If you're looking for LSU Junior Day updates throughout the weekend, you can certainly find them from our guy, Sam Spiegelman. Thanks, man. Have a great weekend.
Yep, you too, Hunt. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. Chugging right along here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Late lunch, right there, government between Foster and Jefferson. Want to feed the fam this weekend. Cork's always great to do that. They're also happy to feed in bulk. If you're feeding the office, want to do a lunch, birthday party, whatever the case may be, Cork's can help you out with that. Big trays of that delicious crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp, honey butter rolls, beignet bites, crawfish etouffee, coleslaw. They got it all over there at Cork's. Check them out on Government Street. CorksFishandShrimp.com. We come back. Going to be a great day inside the PMAC tomorrow, honoring a great team from 25 years ago. We'll talk with Collis Temple III about that coming up in hour 2, but I want to preview LSU in Texas when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is that website. For our security system at the Palmer House, it's Audio Video Security Solutions. They put in our burglar alarm. We got keypads up by the back door and in our bedroom. We can arm the alarm from anywhere, remotely, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can disarm it as well. I've got cameras on the front door and the back door, crystal clear picture. I never pay any cloud storage fees. We can rewind, pause, whatever the case may be, and it's all because of the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. And the beauty of it is, if we ever have an issue, generally it's self-inflicted. We got Mitchell Fisher's cell phone number. My wife or I sends him a text, give him a call. they're there that afternoon or the next day without fail. That's the beauty of a local company that has fantastic customer service after the installation. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Give Mitchell Fisher a call. He's in the 225 area code, obviously, right here in Baton Rouge, and he's at 439-7920. Again, that's 439-7920. You can find him online at avssla.com. It's Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Parish Construction and Roofing.
This is Coach Kim Mulkey. Go to parishbuilt.com for all of your roofing needs.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Working towards the weekend here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're in the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Cool day tomorrow inside the PMAC. 1 hour from now, we're going to talk with Collis Temple III. He was a redshirt freshman on the 2000 LSU basketball team that really rose LSU from the ashes, as it were. You're talking about a program that was just riddled by probation, and you're talking about a program that was on the hardest of times. Dale Brown had LSU absolutely humming for a decade and a half, really, throughout the 80s into the very early 90s. And obviously probation hit, and LSU basketball fell off a cliff. And when the 99-2000 team hit the floor, you're talking about a program that had gone 13-51 in SEC play from 96 to 99. 13-51. And that team went 12-4 in the league, won it outright, and made the Sweet 16. It was Stromile Swift, Jabari Smith, Ronald Dupree, Brian Bashera, Taurus Wright, Jermaine Williams, Lamont Rowland, Collis Temple III. Just a really, really good team and an incredibly fun team to watch. And I think most people that are listening have a team that made you fall in love with that sport. Like for me, it wasn't until the 2000 LSU baseball team. Like that's the team I really got behind. I absolutely remember watching Warren Morris's home run. I definitely remember LSU winning in '97. I was at my grandparents' house as a 9-year-old, and they had to bring me back to my parents' house during the game. So we listened on the radio, and I cried in the back seat because I couldn't be home in time for the dog pile. I wanted to see the dog pile, and I couldn't see the dog pile. So I was aware of those teams. The 2000 team I followed really, really closely. I can still tell you that it was Cressy, Haup, Fontenot, Theriot, Barbier, Witten, Harris, Wright. Like I can still give you I can't give you that for 96. I can't give you that for 97 either, but I can for 2000. And that's the team that made me really fall in love with LSU baseball. For LSU football, Kelvin Falk's team in 97, that was great, beating Florida. But really, to me, the SEC championship team in 2000 was the one that like really set the hook. I loved that team a ton with Rohan Davey and Josh Reed, and they smashed Illinois in the Sugar Bowl. And this team for basketball for me, this is not hyperbole, not at all. I don't have a single LSU basketball memory that predates the 1999-2000 season. Not one. I didn't look this up, but like I could not name one player on LSU's 1997 basketball team. Not one. I don't even know if I can get it multiple choice. And y'all know like how closely I've followed LSU for most of my life. I just told you that I watched Warren Morris's home run in 96 and I cried in 97 when I couldn't see the dog pile for LSU baseball in the College World Series. Like I was clearly an LSU fan. I don't have one memory that predates the team that they're going to honor tomorrow. None. I wasn't old enough for Shaq and Chris Jackson. I was born in 88, the early 90s. I got no chance on that. So this is the team that kind of introduced me to LSU basketball. And they were so freaking fun to watch. I remember vividly watching that Arizona game. And there are some highlights that have been playing on Twitter today of that team in that game. And right before the half, LSU gets a steal, and Jabari does the fake behind the back and dunks it as halftime erupts, and LSU's up 16 at the break against Gilbert Arenas and that Arizona team. Just incredible stuff from them. They beat Texas NCAA tournament. They go to the Final Four, Sweet 16, and they play, that Bo Ryan Wisconsin team that ground the game to a paste, and LSU. I didn't look it up. I think they scored in the 30s or 40s in that game. It was a gross game, but LSU ended up losing it. But a team that really took LSU's basketball program and resurrected it from the doldrums of that probation. And that team will be honored tomorrow. And I really hope there's a really good crowd because apparently they've got really good attendance. Brandon Landry was on that team. He's going to have a get-together at Walk-Ons for him tonight. And Stromile Swift is here. He met with the media over at LSU's practice facility today with John Brady, so he was kind of the face of that team, he and Jabari, so that'll be a really, really cool thing. Incidentally, my AOL screen name, there are some of you that are like, what the heck is that? And some of you are like, yeah, that's my wheelhouse. My AOL screen name for a couple of years was Taurus43, which was Taurus Bright. He was my favorite player on that team because he was the point guard, which is what I did growing up, dribbled, and then he shot a bunch of threes, and I like to shoot a lot of threes. So he was my guy on that team, even though you were talking about Stromile and Jabari that were the elder statesman. Taurus was a freshman on that team. So we'll talk about that team in more detail coming up with Collis Temple III in the second hour, but I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on that. LSU will play Texas tomorrow in the game, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I wrote a column about it at LouisianaSports.net today. LSU right now is in do or die mode. And if you are firmly in the camp of this team has no chance to resurrect itself, I don't blame you for that at all. You're talking about a team that doesn't shoot the three well at all, that cannot protect the basketball, that does not defensive rebound. They're 1-6 in the league. It's very, very bleak at best. But here's what's coming up in the next 6 games. Texas at home. That's a team with a losing record in the SEC. You're at Georgia, who has a losing record in the SEC. Ole Miss comes to you. They beat you pretty good in Oxford. We'll see if you can maybe punch up at home. It is a home game. But then you've got at Arkansas, who's a mess. You're at Oklahoma. Those two teams, Arkansas and Oklahoma, although they're road games, they're 3-11 in the league. They're not very good. Then you got South Carolina coming to the PMAC, and they haven't won a game in league play yet. So if LSU could go 4-2 over that, I mean, here's what you'd have to do. You'd have to beat Texas at home. You'd have to go to Georgia and win. You'd have to split Arkansas and Oklahoma on the road, and then you got to beat South Carolina. And if you can do that, then you would look up and you'd be 5-8 in league play. And I said you needed to get to 7 to get to the NCAA tournament or have a chance. And if you got to 5-8, you'd have to go at that point 2-3 the rest of the way to get to 7-11. I'm not telling you I think I like their chances at all, but this is the soft part of the schedule, and it starts with Texas. That's a team that's 14-7. They're 3-5 in league play. They got crushed at A&M by 20 points to open league play. Then they lost 2 really close games at home to Auburn and Tennessee, who were good. Auburn beat them by 5. Tennessee beat them by 4. They played those two teams tight in Austin. They went to Oklahoma and finally got their first SEC win. Then they went to Florida and lost by 24 points. They beat Missouri in Austin, and then they beat Texas A&M in Austin, but they were down 22 points in the second half of that game, and then they stormed back and won it, and they just went to Ole Miss and gave the Rebels all they could handle in Oxford. That was a 3-point game. They're pretty good on paper. I don't know if it's a great team, but statistically speaking, they're okay. They're 26th in offensive efficiency. They're 51st in defensive efficiency. There is a reason that I think this is a reasonable matchup for LSU in this game. Texas plays very slow. In terms of possessions, they're 249th in the SEC. Only 249th in the SEC. 249th in the country. Only Tennessee in the SEC plays slower than Texas. So it would not stand to reason that Texas is going to speed LSU up and into a ton of turnovers. You wouldn't think that's going to happen. Texas plays pretty slow. And they don't rebound it great on the offensive end. They're 164th in the country in offensive rebounding. So if you limit the possessions, you allow LSU to play first shot defense, which they're pretty good at, and Texas doesn't crash the boards too hard on offense, maybe you can hold them in the 60s. Maybe. And if you can, you've got a chance on the other end. Texas only is 172nd in opposing turnovers per possession. It's not like they force a ton of them. That's LSU's biggest bugaboo. Now, Trey Johnson's a star. He plays for Texas. He's a freshman. He's 6'6". He was a 5-star recruit, consensus top 5 player in the country coming out of Dallas. He will be a lottery pick in this draft. He's awesome. He is scoring 19 points per game. At least listen to some of these point totals against the teams he's doing it against. 30 against A&M, pretty good defensive team. 26 on Tennessee, great defensive team. 22 on Ole Miss, great defensive team. 24 on UConn. I don't think I have to tell you too much about UConn. They don't appear to be the beast they've been the last 2 years. It's still UConn. So he's putting up big numbers on really good defensive teams. He's a guy LSU's going to have to deal with. I'm not sure how they do it, but they're going to have to find a way to slow him down. Arthur Kaluma is another wing. He's a senior, scoring 14, grabbing 8 rebounds a game. He scored 34 points on Auburn, which you just saw Auburn. That's pretty impressive. However, he hasn't scored more than 14 on any SEC team, so a bit of an outlier there. But those are their 2 wings who can get points for him. Jordan Pope's a little point guard they got, and they've got a 6'11 guy who will start for him in the post. But Rodney Terry needs to win some games in year 3 down the stretch, I think, to keep his gig in Austin. He got the job, remember, when Chris Beard was let go because of the legal ramifications, and Terry took over, and he took him to the tournament, and they made a little bit of a run, so they gave him the reins of the program. They haven't been great since then. Texas is better than LSU, but it's at home in the PMAC. Saturday, 5 o'clock tip, honoring a team's 25th anniversary, maybe a decent crowd for a big brand matchup. And if LSU can find a way to win, you've got a chance to make things fairly interesting. But let's be frank about it. Like, their chances to do that are slim and none, and Slim's at least packed. I don't know if Slim's out the door, but it's packed. So it's got to start tomorrow. If they lose tomorrow, then you go on the road, you play Georgia, and if you don't get that done, you can turn out the lights. I told you it was a must-win against Arkansas. They got it done. I would have liked to see them steal one of the last 3. They weren't able to do it. it's a team with a lot of flaws, and I realize that a lot of y'all would rather me just start talking about the backup defensive line and junior days all for 2 hours and then get to baseball. I gotcha, but we're going to cover them until we just simply can't afford to do it anymore. So tomorrow I'm excited to see what the PMAC looks like, excited to celebrate the 25th anniversary of that really fun 2000 team. We'll talk about it with Collis Temple III. But LSU in Texas tomorrow in the PMAC at 5 o'clock. That's when they'll tip things off on campus. All right, when we come back, a little bit more SEC basketball. There's a storyline that's just interesting to me. It's interesting because of its SEC ramifications. It's interesting because some of the quotes that we got yesterday. It's an interesting deal. We'll close out the hour with it. We'll talk baseball in 15 minutes. The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Their major sweepstakes in 2025. This time, we want to cover your car payments.
Sweet! That's awesome.
It's a $5,000 grand prize with a bonus chance to win free car washes from Benny's Car Wash for 6 months. We're also letting you earn extra entries by subscribing to our LouisianaSports.net daily newsletter. To sign up, visit 1045ESPN.com. From Citizens Bank, Benny's Car Wash, and 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
All right, Jacob Beck and Taylor Sharp, I need y'all to be very honest with me. I'm going to ask y'all both a question. Be very honest, because I feel like I know kind of where y'all's interests lie. Your LSU guys, your SEC guys, but I think football probably rules the roost for you. This is a basketball story. Are you interested at all in John Calipari coaching at Rupp Arena tomorrow? Does that interest you at all, Jacob Beck?
Yes.
Taylor Sharp?
No, because Arkansas is not any good.
They're not good. They're not. But I'm fascinated by it because when John Calipari left Memphis to go to Kentucky, it was a huge deal. And it was the perfect hire for Kentucky because for that 7 or 8 years, he was the most feared man in college basketball. I think even more so than Roy Williams or Mike Krzyzewski because of the ridiculous raw talent that he was bringing in at Kentucky. And he put that team together that ended up winning the national championship with Anthony Davis, and then a few years later they had the Harrison twins, and then that was with Karl Anthony Towns and Willie Cauley-Stein, and I didn't think that team could ever lose. I remember vividly, I was covering LSU at the time day to day for Bayou Bengals Insider, and I was going through statistics to write an advance for the story, and I stumbled across a stat that team, which the Harrison twins were their starting backcourt, and they were both 6'6". So that was the shortest guys they had on the court were 6'6". And they had Willie Cauley-Stein, who was 7 feet, and Karl Anthony Towns, who was 6'11". And they rebounded 52% of their misses at that point, which was in February, which is just a ridiculous. But I mean, the point being, they were great, and they just didn't quite get it done. A couple times when they had probably the best team, and then it got stale, and then Duke caught on and started getting the one and dones, and they were getting Jabari Parker and Jahlil Okafor and Austin Rivers and some of those guys, Kyrie Irving, and those were the guys Cal was getting, and then Duke started to get them, and he still recruited at a pretty high level, but they just weren't winning, and then all of a sudden you start losing to St. Peter's, and you start and it got really, really stale, and he's going to go into Rupp tomorrow, and this is a quote that John Calipari gave on his weekly radio show. My guess is I'm going to get booed, but that's all part of it. Shoot, you get booed. I've done this so long, I'll tell you, I've got bazooka holes in my body, so when you shoot arrows, it doesn't even hit skin. But it'll be interesting. I can't say I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to coaching, but to walk in, the vibe, I don't know how I'm going to take it, to be honest with you. And that's interesting to me. I think John Calipari is probably a pretty good dude. I think I'd really enjoy grabbing a beer with him and telling stories. I don't think he's a great basketball coach. I think he's a dynamic presence who won a lot of games based on his skill as a recruiter and a program builder and an assembler of talent. And so I don't think it's going to work at Arkansas, and I think it was time for Kentucky to move on. But I do feel the human side of this, that John Calipari put a lot of time and a lot of effort into winning a ton of games at Kentucky, including a national championship. And this is a team that had Gillespie as the head coach, that ran Tubby Smith out of town. And just because it got stale at the end and now Mark Pope's winning games in January and February, which, by the way, John Calipari won a lot of games in January and February. It's just the 40 minutes in March that Kentucky fans want to go nuts about, not dissimilar to Paul Maneri in Baton Rouge. And for them to roundly boo him tomorrow, to me, just feels a little bit off. And I'm not as obviously as connected as the Kentucky fans, and there's a great quote from Matt Jones, who's a Kentucky sports radio guy who's got a great business, who calls Kentucky "we" on the air. He's in my ilk of folks that just aren't. This is where my allegiance lies. This is who I wants to win. I'm going to talk about it. Whether you want to call me a fanboy or a homer or whatever the case may be, this is how I'm going to present myself, and that to me is pretty genuine and authentic, and that's the way that I present myself, and Matt Jones is that way. And he gave a quote in this Dan Wolken column on USA Today that says, it just got too toxic at the end. He was blaming the fan base. He was giving excuses. He bristled at any sort of criticism. It was toxic at the end. And you know what? Sometimes that happens. And maybe in 5 years, 8 years, when he gives it up at Arkansas and rides off into the sunset, he can come back for the Anthony Davis reunion and all will be well and good. They just did that with Rick Pitino, who, by the way, coached Louisville for a long time after he left for the Celtics and then came back to college. And all is good with Rick Pitino in Lexington, and I'm assuming that day will come with John Calipari too. It's just too fresh and too new. I get it to an extent. But to me, when you do as many good things as John Calipari did for Kentucky, and then you come back and you're not booed because you're wearing an Arkansas sweatshirt. You're booed because they don't like you right now. And that, to me, there's a human side of that kind of eats at me a little bit. Like, clearly I'm not expecting the Kentucky fans to, like, say, oh, well, I hope Cal does well today. I hope we'll give it a good shot. Like, there's a game to be played, and Kentucky's trying to work their way up the seeding ranks and build this team into a potential team that can make a run in March. I get the whole thing, but it's fascinating to me. Kentucky basketball fascinates me. It's the standard bearer in the SEC, the same way that really Alabama has been in football and the same way that LSU is in baseball. And as I said all the time, I wasn't going to break down whether or not South Carolina is going to fire their basketball coach last year. I was never going to do that with Texas A&M. With Kentucky, it's a story to me. And so John Calipari will go back to Rupp tomorrow, and I'm very curious how he's received and kind of what that is. It feels like he kind of knows what's coming. They're going to get beat pretty bad. I know that. But interesting thing to me, at least. We'll pause for SportsCenter. We'll come back, talk some baseball. Left side of the infield next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When you can't rely on technology, you can rely on Mountain Cold Refreshment.
Dave's back on.
Coors Light. Choose chill.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas. You can count on efficient and affordable natural gas to keep you comfortable and reduce your environmental impact to help protect our planet. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Point of the season, Stewart will sit out tonight's game against the Mavericks, which happens to be Isaiah Stewart bobblehead night in Detroit. Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans a week from Sunday, and when it comes to the quarterbacks in this game, plenty of flowers for the Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes. But Eagles coach Nick Sirianni wonders why there's so much criticism of his guy, Jalen Hurts.
All I know is all he does is win, and he puts us in positions to win. He's selfless. He doesn't really care how we win, and just goes about his business every day. And so I don't think that's talked about enough about how well he's done as far as just leading the football team.
Nick Sirianni, the victims of Wednesday's midair crash near Washington, D.C., will be honored at the World Skating Championships in Boston in March. 14 of those victims came from the skating community, including skaters, coaches, and family members.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy. Coming up Monday, I'll get you ready for Super Bowl 59 with the keys to the game. It's Unsportsmanlike, weekday mornings at 6, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, final hour of the week for the Hunt Palmer Show here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, represented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We'll chat with Collis Temple III, one of the members of the 2000 Sweet 16 basketball team that will be honored tomorrow inside the PMAC. We'll do that coming up in 30 minutes. There's some more news around the Saints that we'll get to here in about 15 minutes, but we want to do what we've been doing all week long. We'll continue into next week, and that is our LSU baseball position preview series. You can find it every morning at LouisianaSports.net, going position by position. We've already covered catcher, we covered first base, and we covered second base yesterday. And now we move to the left side of the infield, and we'll kind of encapsulate all of that here because it's going to be connected by two very common threads. So I split them on the website yesterday. Today we'll do shortstop there, and then tomorrow the piece for third base will be but I'll do them together since we don't have a radio show tomorrow, and talk about shortstop and third base. By now, you're probably well aware that Stephen Milam and Michael Braswell are likely to make up the left side of LSU's infield to begin the season. Where they will play will be dictated on how things go the next 2 weeks. Jay Johnson has said steadfastly, dating back to the fall, that the best defensive player is going to play shortstop, and then the other will play third base. And he has also said that he believes Stephen Milam is the best defensive player that they have, and so I think that it stands to reason he would be the shortstop. However, if he does not play well over the next 2 weeks before the first game, you could see a situation where LSU leans on a very reliable insurance policy in Michael Braswell, who was your starting shortstop last year. Now, if you remember, Braswell had a very, very shaky beginning to the season defensively. He led the SEC in errors as of April 4th of last year. He had made 9 in 30 games. But he did play well down the stretch. In the last 26 games of the season, he only made 2 errors. So he was a lot better once he got more comfortable over there at shortstop. He also turned a corner offensively. Remember, he was not a very good offensive player at South Carolina. In 2 seasons at South Carolina, he had 24 total extra base hits. 24 extra base hits in 2 years of South Carolina. 12 a year, not very much. He had 19 extra base hits last season. So a big uptick in some more thunderous swings from Braswell. especially big swing in the regional against North Carolina with a home run. Had a big swing against South Carolina's former team in the SEC tournament. He was an all-tournament team player in the SEC tournament and in the regional last year. It was weird because he, in both events, went 8 for 22. So he was 8 for 21. Sorry, he was 8 for 21 in the SEC tournament and 8 for 21 in the regional. So 16 for 42. That's 381 he hit in postseason play last year. And he was an all-tournament team in both. Really solid close to the season for Braswell. But there's a reason why the starting shortstop at LSU was not drafted high enough to pursue professional baseball last year. He doesn't run super well. He doesn't have a ton of power. He doesn't have a huge arm or exciting range at shortstop. He's just a very solid college baseball player. And that's a good thing to have on your roster. It's a good thing to be able to fall back on. Stephen Milam's got a little bit more upside there. And they're going to look at him at shortstop potentially. Of course, last year, Milam did not start the opener at second base. Josh Pearson did, but he started the second game of the season and really took over that role and played great as a true freshman. He hit 326. He hit 8 home runs. 5 of those 8 home runs were in the last 15 games of the season. He also was playing with a small stress fracture in his foot at that point. So it was a gutty effort, and it was a really good effort from Stephen Milam at second base last year. Those two guys will make up the left side. You're not going to have an elite defender at shortstop on this LSU team, if you ask me. Braswell is limited as far as his range and quickness goes. Milam is limited as far as his arm goes. So you're not going to have a great arm at shortstop. It'll be fine for the routine plays. You hit a ground ball to short, you need a double play turned. Like, they can make the routine plays. The ball in the hole to the backhand side, maybe the ball that's pulling you towards center field into the outfield, trying to twist and make a throw. Some of those are not going to look like Jordan Thompson. You don't have that kind of arm. I don't even think they have what Kramer Robertson had at shortstop, quite frankly. But I think they should be able to make the routine play, which is what Jay Johnson wants first and foremost. And they should feel comfortable kind of charging ball. Like, you're going to be okay at shortstop, but it's not going to be elite defensively. I do think Milam is going to be a really good hitter for this team. He hit 326 last year. I could see him as a 350 batting guy, and I could see him hitting 10, 11, 12 home runs after last year hitting 8, and the ball started to fly off his bat a little bit when the weather warmed up. He homered right-handed in the SEC tournament, had the walk-off against Wofford left-handed in the Chapel Hill Regional. So a guy that can really hit. So it's solid over there. It's not spectacular. And that's where you are. I believe that Stephen Milam's going to be the shortstop. I think they'll move Michael Braswell to third. If they see fit to swap that would be okay as well. As far as defense at third base goes, if you can handle yourself at shortstop, you can handle yourself at third base. I personally prioritize third base defense in the college game, at the elite level of the college game, more so than like professional organizations would. Professional organizations kind of feel like, you can figure out third base. Guys hit the ball pretty hard to third base with these metal bats. And so, yeah, your shortstop's going to be your best defender, but you can give up some outs if you don't have a really good third baseman defensively in college. So I think the fact that you've got a guy with hands good enough to play short, playing third, I think that's a positive for LSU. Now, look, Tommy White was great over there at third base. Jacob Berry, not a great third baseman 3 years ago. He's a hitter, and that's why they're going to move him to the outfield in the pro game or first base. But Tommy White was great last year, and I think LSU has a chance to be pretty salty at third base here. Again, not elite arm strength for those guys, but they should have good hands. They should be able to make plays to their backhand side and use some quickness there. And I think you'll be okay defensively at third base with whichever one Jay Johnson decides to go with. As far as reserves go at those two places, Mikey Ryan, David Hogg, and John Pearson are kind of the next 3 guys. They're all true freshmen. Ryan and Hogg are middle infielders by trade. They're shortstops in high school. Ryan was a draft risk coming out of Rummel. Really good fielder, line drive hitter, just a baseball guy that I enjoy watching, and I know the staff likes him a lot as well. David Hogg's a really good athlete that's 6'2" and really looks the part out there as well. He's got to clean it up a little bit offensively. They're going to have him adjust to this level. But both of those two guys really look good in infield practice, and I think have a bright future at LSU. I don't know if it's right this second, because I think that Tanner Reeves might be the next guy up if something's got to be moved around via injury or not performance, whether that's Dickinson, Milam, and Braswell. Those are kind of your first guys. If somebody goes down or you've got to move some pieces, I think Reeves probably goes in at second or third with somebody moving over to shortstop. But I think you're looking at Ryan and Hogg as guys who are exciting young players. LSU had a couple of middle infielders in the freshman class last year. Both have transferred out. I think Ryan and Hogg are more talented than those two guys were. So I'm excited about them. John Pearson it's funny because he is Josh's brother. That's where the similarities stop. Like Josh is 5'10", 185. John is 5'11" or 6 foot, 250-ish. I mean, he's a big boy, and he's right-handed, and he's a power hitter. Now, if he can play third base, he becomes a pretty attractive pro prospect because he's a big body, physical, and profiles to hit and hit for power. If he can't play third base, he's a little bit short to play first, and he kind of becomes a beer league softball slugger. Like that's, I mean, I don't mean to disparage the young man. I think he's a talented dude, but he's got to learn to play third base if he wants to have a professional future. And I haven't seen enough, candidly, in fall or the last 2 weeks to give any sort of thought on whether or not he can play third base. He's not going to play third base on this team. They got more guys in front of him that are going to be that. But he needs to develop, needs to learn how to handle this velocity because he's got strength and he's got power. And he showed that in his high school days up at West Monroe. So you've got 3 true freshmen backing up what are veterans around the rest of the way. Reeves is a JUCO junior. Milam is a sophomore with a lot of starts under his belt. And then, of course, Braswell has really been starting in the SEC for 3 years. Those are going to be your starters and then and your first backup. Then you've got these 3 guys waiting in the wings. So as far as like a big overview goes, I'm comfortable with the floor with Braswell and Milam. You've got solid dudes there. I think Milam's going to hit for a little more power. I don't think any of them are elite defenders at shortstop because the arm strength's a bit of an issue. But I think you've kind of shored up third base defense. Not that Tommy White was bad. The opposite, he's great. But I think there are going to be some SEC teams that may put a mediocre third baseman out there defensively, and I think that hurts you bad. I don't think LSU's going to do that. Braswell and Milam can absolutely play that position. I saw Braswell on Sunday of last week make a really nice play, moving to his left range and made a nice strong throw across. So I think he's going to be your third baseman. I think that's going to go just fine. It's a deal where you have Tommy White at third where you're missing massive power, 20 home run power, but you got to make up for it. This is the Jay Johnson like Moneyball thing. You don't have a Tommy White replacement to plug in at third. That doesn't exist. So what do? Well, you put Dickinson at second where Milam hit 8 home runs and you hope that he hits 16. And then at catcher, you had Milazzo who hit 0. Well, what if Arambidi and Hernandez combined to hit between the two of them at catcher 23? Well, now all of a sudden you've made up for it. So that's ambitious probably to think Hernandez and Arambidi could hit 23 combined, but maybe they hit 19. Maybe they hit 17. Well, that's 17 more than Milazzo hit. He hit none. So you start to kind of mix and match, and as they say in the movie Moneyball, we're going to recreate him in the aggregate. You can't recreate Tommy White, and you're certainly not at third base with Michael Braswell or Stephen Milam playing there. But if you can add your home runs at second base, if, say, Braswell and Milam both increase their home run total, and then you get more pop from the catcher spot, all of a sudden you've started to make up for that and plug some holes. So that's my preview of the left side of LSU's defensive infield. If you're looking for LSU baseball content, we got you covered at louisianasports.net. Every single morning until next Friday, we'll have a different position preview. Today's is at shortstop. Tomorrow will be at third base. Sunday will be in left field. And we're back here on Monday over at louisianasports.net. We'll preview center field. Also, just a quick plug, Musso at the Box is back. So if you were enjoying Musso's stuff last year with Musso at the Box, you can find him on YouTube, wherever your podcasts are. You can check out his baseball coverage just about every morning over there at Musso at the Box. Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. College Temple III coming up in 15 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. The website is a great resource over at OneBathAndClosets.com. You can see the great pictures of their work. You can see the testimonials from satisfied clients. I know a lot of y'all saw them out at that expo over the weekend where they were kind of debuting some of the great work that they can do. You can check it out all at onebathandclosets.com. And if you go to onebathandclosets.com, you can get the free consultation with David Duvall and start your process. It doesn't cost you anything to have David come out and say, hey, this is kind of what I think. What do you think? He'll have that discussion with you. You can talk about timeline. You can talk about pricing. And you can start on your new bathroom or new closet. If you're concerned right off the bat, don't know about paying for that. Well, that's reasonable. But how about financing? You do 0% up to 18 months if you qualify. Dave's been at this for better than 30 years. He can help you with a brand new bathroom, brand new closet. It's One Bath and Closets. Check him out online, onebathandclosets.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Collis Temple III, former Tiger, member of the 2000 exactly, SEC championship team that went to the Sweet 16. He'll be with us in about 12 minutes. He'll be honored in the PMAC tomorrow as LSU takes on Texas, ironically, team that LSU beat in the NCAA tournament that year. So excited for that conversation coming up here in just a few minutes. Ross Jackson at LouisianaSports.net's got a news piece up on the homepage. Got a report from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Said the Saints are expected to meet a third time with Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, after the Super Bowl. And to me, and to everyone who's kind kind of reading this and what the reports are, that seems to be open and shut. Like the Saints are going to keep lines of communication open with some of the folks that they have interviewed, but they're moving towards Kellen Moore. And that's kind of what we expected once Joe Brady and Mike McCarthy were out of the picture and you knew that Kellen Moore had 2 weeks before you could officially hire him. That like if it drew out, that's where things were headed. And there were reports from Diana Rossini yesterday that were like, he may not be completely in, but if they decide to make a quarterback change, maybe he can get on board with that. And then I gave you my opening kind of dialogue on the show today that was suggesting like maybe this is the best thing. Maybe this is the cold water in the face that the entire Saints brass needed to hear everyone tell them we're not going to do things your way, we're not interested. And maybe they finally heard that enough times to go, okay, well, if Kellen Moore wants to make some changes, we're good with that. And they're going to decide to move that direction. And I can see it being a complete bust because he's young and he hasn't been a head coach before. I can see it being a breath of fresh air that leads the Saints in a whole new direction that works out once they get the right quarterback in place. You never know. There are no sure things in coaching hires. There is a sure thing when you make a free agent move to go get Saquon Barkley. Like, he's going to be really good. Like, that's just the way that is. In coaching, you don't know. And that's why I'm giving the Saints the benefit of the doubt until things are settled, and then you give it a chance and see what happens. And Kellen Moore appears to be the guy that they're going to tab. Beck, you've heard my diatribes for 2 weeks on this entire thing. You're a Saints guy. How are we feeling about Kellen Moore as the new black and gold leader, assuming that's what happens next Tuesday or so?
Well, it's hard to say that I would be excited and over the moon for Kellen Moore to be the head coach of the Saints. I mean, look, how many guys have to turn this job down before you realize that, okay, they're not going to be probably getting the best candidate for the job because no one else wants this job. So, and I think back to when I worked in Houston and the Texans were it was 3 or 4 years ago. And the Texans
they're always in a coaching search.
They were until they got. It seems like now maybe they have some stability with Miko Ryans, but before that, they hired a guy named David Culley. You may not even know that name.
I wouldn't have gotten him multiple choice.
I'm sure Taylor knows him because he's a big football guy. But he
coached
1
year, right?
Yeah, he coached the Texans for 1 year. Yeah. Everyone knew, even when they hired him, that this guy is not going to be the head coach of the Texans for more than a year or two, if that, because it's clear that no one wanted that job because it was just the team was in a terrible position. And so they just went out and hired some random guy because they couldn't get anyone else.
Random guy.
Now, I'm not
they
saying,
found him at the Galleria. They're like, hey, man, he put that shopping bag down.
You go look at where he was before that. They pretty much did hire him.
He did. It pretty much was. Now, of course, it's a different situation.
He was at Papa's Steakhouse. He was ordering a cheesecake.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you want to come coach the Texans?
I think he was.
He might have been, honestly. Yeah, honestly, he might have been. But this is not a one-to-one comparison, but I just think that when you look at what happened with all the different guys that were candidates and they just pretty much took their name out the hat, this just doesn't exactly excite me very much. Not to say that Kellen Moore couldn't end up being a very good coach. I mean, and people are going to look back at 2004 or whenever Sean Payton came in, and nobody really talked about Sean. Nobody thought Sean Payton was going to come in here and be a great coach. Of course, he ends up getting one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm not happy or glad that the Saints are getting a new head coach, but
you're not excited.
Not excited.
Taylor, you watched him call plays for 4 years.
Yeah, I did. I was telling you during break. I have a little bit of a different view of Kellen Moore because I watched him a number of years in Dallas. I didn't think he was very good in Dallas, but he got that job awful young. I mean, he literally retired from the NFL. The next season was named the Cowboys quarterback coach.
Yeah.
2 years after that, I mean, he's 30 years old, and he's the offensive coordinator. When they gave play calling duties back to Mike McCarthy, I thought the offense improved a little bit.
When he was gone, right? When Moore
After he was
right?
gone, yes. But again, that was his first coordinator opportunity. He was super, super young.
The Cowboys did lead the NFL in touchdowns one year that Kellen Moore was
They did.
calling
It was actually his first year. The second year, he got worse, and then that's when he moved on. They brought in Mike McCarthy, and then, he was okay with the Chargers. The problem was he was coaching under Brandon Staley, and they had nothing on that team. They had a young Justin Herbert, absolutely nothing around him. And then he's done a really good job at the Eagles, who also have a lot of talent. So Mixed opinions with the Cowboys, bad with a bad Chargers team, really good with a lot of talent in Philly. So I'm kind of up in the air about this.
I like the fact, because I feel like Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts are very different.
Yes.
The Cowboys, while they did have a good running game, like Dak wants to throw the short passing game a lot. They had a lot of talent on the outside. The Eagles have been more run heavy in this year that they had Saquon, so why would you not be, even though they had talent on the outside? So I feel like the fact that he's made it work with two different guys, it feels very different to me than going to hire Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs staff. You're like, well, cool. How much of that is Mahomes and how much of you are doing this? He's had really productive offenses at two different spots with different rosters, which I think is a feather in his cap.
I do too. And like you were talking about with Saquon, like he had end of the road Ezekiel Elliott at the Cowboys.
Yeah.
He had a good Zeke for 1 year, but after that he fell apart. And then he had Austin Eckler at the Chargers. I mean, he had some good years, but they're not Saquon. Like, to your point, he seems like he's doing a really good job of fitting his scheme to his players, which is something a lot of guys don't do. A lot of guys come in and they're like, this is my scheme. You're going to learn how to run it. Kellen Moore's adapted.
No doubt. And I want to bring this point up because Charles Handegriff wrote a great column for LouisianaSports.net like 2 months ago when the Saints were in trouble, when Allen was getting fired, and basically said, like, there's a blueprint for this, and it's in Houston. And one of the things that when you look at the Texans, who were a disaster, Beck saying they're hiring a different coach every year, they were a disaster. But here's what the Texans did. They drafted Henry To'oTo'o and Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud and Derek Stingley and Kenyon Green and Christian Harris and Nico Collins. They went to the draft and they kept hitting on these draft picks. And you don't always get the Stingley and Will Anderson pick right at the top, but Nico Collins was a third-round pick, and they absolutely nailed it, and he's really good. Christian Harris, third-round pick. Damian Pierce from Florida, fourth-round pick. To'oTo'o in the fifth round. Like, they have overhauled that roster because they keep hitting on draft picks, and they got the quarterback they needed. The Saints can't get the quarterback they needed right now. That's just not a fixable issue. But you've got to draft a little bit better, and that's the only way it's going to get better. So whether or not Kellen Moore is the guy or not, like, if you can't hit on your draft picks a little bit better than this, it's not going to matter.
Yeah,
and the Texans figured it out.
They did, and seeing what the blueprint is there, the Texans were able to do it, and they went. But the key to all of it is, and we were seeing this with the Commanders, is the quarterback. If you can get,
that's tougher.
It is, but if you can even C.J. Stroud he has played well. He hasn't played the level Jaden Daniels played this year in his career. No one. Yes, but even with a guy, so C.J. Stroud, I don't know if anyone would say he is a franchise quarterback. He's good so far. He could be a franchise. He could maybe become a franchise quarterback for the Texans, and maybe he will be, but so far he's been good. But it's been the player, the whole roster as a whole for the Texans has gotten a lot better in the last years through the draft. So I agree with you. That's gonna be the utmost importance for the Saints.
And you could look at me and say, well, the Texans are in a terrible division. And I would go, that's true. The Saints also in a terrible division.
Yes.
So it's kind of apples to apples in that way. Look, maybe the best thing if you're talking about quarterback is to cut Derek Carr loose, eat the money, send Rattler out there, win 4 games, and pick a quarterback. That may be the best route forward. Even though this organization has never done that. We'll just have to see. So nothing set in stone, but it appears based on all the reporting that everyone in the NFL circles feels like Kellen Moore has said, okay, I'll take this gig after I go try to win a Super Bowl. Happens to be in New Orleans. So a quick transition from the press box where he's calling plays or sideline where he's calling plays right into to Airline Highway if he indeed makes that decision. All right, I'm really excited for this next conversation. Y'all come hang out with us. Collis Temple III, part of the 2000 SEC championship team that went to the Sweet 16. They'll be honored in the PMAC coming up tomorrow. We'll talk to CT3 coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carbo and his team, fantastic to work with on the insurance side. Look, I know that insurance is not the most fun thing to talk about. I did it for 7 years. I get it. But it's important. And oftentimes you have to have it. So why not get it right? If it's going to be expensive and you're going to have to pay for it anyway, you might as well get it right. And that's what the folks at the Highland Insurance Group prioritize. That's what they pride themselves on. They're experts in the coverage game. And that means they're going to audit your policy. They're going to make sure that your business is taken care of where all your risk lay. They're going to go ahead and look at you and say, hey, what's your risk appetite here? They'll mitigate against it. They'll make sure you're placed in the right market. They're an independent insurance broker, meaning they got access to dozens of markets. They can best fit your program where it needs to be. That's what they do at the Highland Insurance Group. If you're looking for a magic bullet in insurance that's going to save you 20% right off the top, this is not the phone call to make. If you want to make sure your insurance coverage is right so you can protect your business when that bad thing happens, the Highland Insurance Group needs to be on your list. Check them out online at highlandig.com. They're based right here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. It's the Highland Insurance Group, highlandig.com.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Atmos Energy, our Smart Choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the
You're listening to The Hun Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Free throw by Rose. That one is no good. Rebound goes to Ole Miss. Harrison hustles it into the front court. 7-6. Far side, Flanagan wants to shoot the three. He does. Short off the rim. Tip back up. No good. 1 second. No seconds. Game over. Run it down. The LSU Fighting Tigers are the 1999-2000 Southeastern Conference champions. And the fans storm the floor. And the Tigers have done what everybody thought would be absolutely impossible. The final score, LSU 64, Ole Miss 60. Congratulations, guys. You deserved it. You won it the hard way. John Brady saluting the fans here that saw this one. And this team will go down in history as one of the most exciting and one of the best that's ever worn the
It's Jim Hawthorne on the call. 25 years ago, 2000, LSU won the Southeastern Conference. That team will be honored tomorrow inside the Assembly Center. You know the names by now: Stromile Swift, Jabari Smith, Brian Beshara, Taurus Bright, Lamont Rowland, Jermaine Williams, Collis Temple III. Really, really good team. Brandon Landry on that team as well. The team that actually was the first memory that I have of LSU basketball. I was 12 years old when this team kind of got hot, and they started off really well. They went to New Orleans, in New Orleans Arena at the time, and beat Oklahoma State to remain undefeated in non-conference play. Then they hit a bump in the road there and lost 3 of their first 4 league games. But after that, they won 12 of 13 and won the SEC outright, as you heard on that call. One of my sentimental moments of watching that team was the win over Arizona in late January. Arizona was number 1 in the country. Gilbert Arenas was on that team, and LSU beat them by 26 points. Gilbert Arenas and that team had no chance that day. Jabari Smith with the fake behind the back slam right before the half, and it was just an incredible team to watch. They were high flying, they were high scoring, they were really good on defense, and I have another core memory of that team. I was in school. I was in 6th grade, and they played Southeastern Missouri State in the NCAA tournament opener that year. And we had these big, colorful Mac computers in the back that we were allowed to go play educational games on during the course of the day. And you put headphones on to play these games. There was one that was like a Bug's Life thing that you would do and identify a different thing, whatever. I didn't care. I didn't really play it that much. But I knew that you wore headphones when you did that. So I asked the teacher during what I knew was the second half of that game to go into the back and play this educational game at the computer. So as a 6th grader, I went back to the computer and I put my Discman between my legs and put it on 11:30 a.m. the Tiger in Shreveport and listened to the basketball game with the headphones and played the game on mute. So it looked like I was just playing the game and listening to the game. I didn't even care what I was doing with the game. I was just listening to the basketball game between my legs, which, that's pretty typical of my behavior. No one else is sick enough to do that, but I did. And Brian Beshara hit a 3-ball to win that game against Southeast Missouri State, win that game by 3, come out 2 days later on a Saturday and beat Texas 72-67 to reach the second round of the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. They beat Wisconsin they lost to Wisconsin 61-48 that day. And it was just one of those classic Bo Ryan teams at the pit in Albuquerque, and LSU just never got out of the mud. Not dissimilar to the Final Four game against UCLA that would come 6 years later with that Glenn Davis team. But I don't know if you have that Glenn Davis team without this fantastic 2000 team that really gave second life to LSU basketball. It was such an amazing run, and I'm jealous of everyone who was around for the 80s. My dad tells incredible stories to me about those teams with High C. Carter and Ethan Martin and Rudy Macklin and Ricky Blanton and all those great teams. And then, of course, you had Chris Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal. And Dale Brown had that incredible run from the early 80s through the early 90s, of a little bit better than a decade. And my dad swears in 81 that LSU was the best team in the country. And it went to sleep in the 90s. And it took until 1999-2000 when LSU finally was awakened again by that team led by Stromile Swift and Jabari Smith and John Brady and that whole crew. And on that team was the young redshirt freshman by the name of Collis Temple III. Collis Temple, good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Friday. He joined us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Collis, thanks so much, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you guys having me.
It is certainly our pleasure. I know this is going to be a big weekend for y'all. Take me back. I know that LSU basketball is quite literally in your blood with your dad being a player a couple decades before you. But when you came to LSU basketball was not in a very good place. What do you remember about that point and what that 2000 team meant to kind of the rebirth of LSU basketball?
Well, it was you were 1,000% right. I was the kid that Came out of U-High and had a desire to obviously follow in my dad's footsteps, but also I was a ball boy when Shaquille and then Chris Jackson, obviously Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf were at the school and all the way up, was a ball boy. So, I when I was getting recruited, I didn't even take a visit. I just jumped, I jumped at the opportunity once they offered me a scholarship. And I just remember that recruiting class. I got a chance to play against Strohmile since I was probably 13, 14 years old when we would play, in state AAU tournaments. Grew up with Jermaine Williams. Kind of got to know Brad Bridgewater when I was about a junior in high school. And, we had a really, really, really good incoming team. And my freshman year, when Strohmile came in as a freshman and Jabari was a junior that year, we also had Maurice Carter was a senior on that team. And it was a good team, but just couldn't quite get over the hump. That was Coach Brady's second year there. He had come in the year before that. That was his second year, but everything was just he recruited Taurus Bright, Ronald Dupree. They came in as freshmen. A couple of the guys from that previous team actually decided to leave, and it was just he had a great rotation of 8 guys in just perfect positions. When you look at Jabari as what we call now a stretch 5, you know what I'm saying? In 2000, you didn't really have, centers doing the things that Jabari was doing, right? And then you have Strohmile Swift, who is arguably one of the most athletic players to ever come through LSU, easily one of the most decorated coming into as a parade All-American, McDonald's All-American. And then Brian Bashera, a great compliment at the small forward at 6'9", 6'8", right? And then, of course, you got Lamont Rowland at the 2, who was a player of the year, junior college player of the year, Taurus at the 1, me coming off the bench, Jermaine Williams, Ronald Dupree, Brad Bridgewater. So you're legitimately 9 deep. And I think that we absolutely surprised some people because we were not expected to be able to compete at that level. I think that the nation kind of woke up when we played against Arizona and beat the hell out of them in the PMAC.
That was going to be my next question. First of all, did the team sense that y'all could compete at the highest level and be a threat to eventually win the SEC back in November before you even started? Did we lose Collis back? There you are.
All right, look, I'm back. You said, did you? That was the last thing I heard you say.
Did the team sense in November that y'all could be a threat to win the Southeastern Conference?
Absolutely. We understood the talent that we had, and you got to realize that. And look, I'm driving to New Orleans, so if I'm going over the bridge, if I'm breaking up a little bit, that's what it is. But,
I got you.
But we absolutely did, because you are always watching what other teams are doing. Obviously, your focus is on you being the best that you can be, and we had that in our coaching staff. Did a phenomenal job of making sure we stayed focused. A lot of credit has to go to Coach Brady, Coach Pierre, Donnie Tyndall, and we were very clear about what we needed to do, but we understood who else was out there, and we knew in our mind what we had compared to what they had. And so we really were not afraid of anybody in the Southeastern Conference. We went 12-4, but I can honestly tell you, I completely believe that we should have probably been closer to 14-2. The other guys on the team probably concur with that.
Yeah, y'all lost 3 of your first 4 in conference play and then didn't look back after that. You mentioned the Arizona game. My buddy's 37 years old, and I told him I was going to be talking about that team on the show today, and he said, that's my favorite PMAC memory of my entire life, was going to that Arizona game when y'all beat them by 26, and Jabari did the fake behind the back and dunked it. What are your memories of that day?
Obviously, Taurus, all SEC freshmen, had a phenomenal season, but that game, I remember he got in foul trouble, and I ended up playing point guard for I don't remember what it was, but 22, 23 minutes, more than half the game, I was in the game playing point. And because I was, the backup point to him. And so Jason Gardner was a first-team All-American. And they had 4 or 5 guys on that team that were Gilbert Arenas, Luke Walton. There's a bunch of different guys on that team. And the reality was we just outplayed them. We out-toughed them. We just beat them down. At no point was it a game. And I just remember, and Strohmeyer just had a monster game, 29 points, and it was confirmation for us. But the rest of the country just kind of got a feel for that. But the play I remember 2 plays in particular, which one I was bringing it down, and I threw a alley-oop from half court, and then Strohmeyer went and dunked on somebody under the basket. It was crazy. I remember that one, and obviously the Jabari move, which was ridiculous. It might have got him that might have been the move that got him drafted in the first round. And then, I remember making a move on Jason Gardner, who was, the consensus first-team All-American point guard, and he fell down. And I was just this freshman point guard that wasn't even really supposed to be getting a lot of time or playing on a major team. So, that whole season was a great experience. And I would say every college basketball player, I would hope for them that they have a year where they experience the camaraderie within their own team, and also the relationship that was built with the fans the way we did that year.
I talked to Coach Brady earlier this week. Sounds like y'all are going to have awesome attendance this weekend as that team gets honored for its 25th anniversary. Y'all enjoy the entire weekend. We'll see you in the P-back tomorrow, and we appreciate a little bit of time, Collis.
Man, thanks for having me.
That is Collis Temple III, CT3. I look back at that team. Man, they were really good. Like, Strohmeyer was the second pick in the draft. Torrey Smith, NBA player, just such a freak athlete at the 5 as well. Torres Bright had a great year that year shooting the 3. Almost shot 40% from the 3. You had Ronald Dupree on that team, who was a freshman but was 6'6" and so freakishly athletic. Brian Bashara transferred over from Rice and was a really good 3-point shooter that you had to respect while Strohmeyer was wearing you out on the inside. And he mentioned, that team, Jason Gardner, Gilbert Arenas, Luke Walton, that's a star-studded Lute Olson Arizona team that was really good. And they went to the PMAC to play that team and did not compete for 5 minutes in that game. Just absolutely no shot. Which, as I mentioned in the first hour, that's the team that made me love LSU basketball. I told this in the first hour as well for those that weren't listening. Like, I don't have a single LSU basketball memory at all, not one, good or bad, before that team took the floor. Because as a 10-year-old in Shreveport, you're not on TV. They weren't any good. They were losing a bunch of games. they were. I gave the stat in the first hour. They were 13-51 over their last 3 seasons before that. As a 10-year-old, I'm not watching that. It's not on TV. I'm not going to any games. I live in Shreveport. I didn't even know LSU basketball existed to that point. And then that team showed up, started kicking people's tails, and man, it was a lot of fun to watch. Won a couple of games, went to the Sweet 16 before Wisconsin got them. So y'all get into the PMAC tomorrow and honor a great group of Tigers who did some great things 25 years ago this year. We got one segment to go. We'll come back and close it out. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. If you want to go see the lot, you can. They're at Airline and Piku. You may not have considered a Genesis if you're in the market for a car. When I say luxury car brand, you probably think of some others. Give Genesis a chance. Go on by and see them. You're going to be so impressed with, 1, the dealership, 2, the line of vehicles, and 3, the staff that they've got there to help welcome you to their campus. It's a phenomenal organization, and it's a great line of vehicles. If safety is important to you, I know that it is, get on by Genesis. Every single car in the line is given the IIHA top safety pick, some of them top safety pick plus. Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go see them online or on Airline and Piku. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. a family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
OTB, AFR, and the Hunt Palmer Show are hitting the road to spend the week on Radio Row, walking you up to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Our coverage is presented locally by LeBear's Casino Hotel, Baton Rouge. You can listen on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and watch on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel that will start on Monday.
Fired up to get down to New Orleans all week on Radio Row for the Super Bowl. Should be a ton of fun. We'll be there starting Monday all week long, as Beck just said. We're short on time here, so let's get right to it. Beck, we got Take It or Leave It?
Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take Alrighty. Let me turn this down real quick. All right, first one here, Taylor Swift and the Blippi Excavator song for 4 hours. Take it or leave it.
You got to leave that. We're about to hop on the road to Shreveport with the family. I don't get a ton of say at times on what plays on the radio. When the 3-year-old in the back seat gets to say it's the Blippi Excavator song, gotta say, not my favorite song to listen to a number of times in a row. At times we switch it up to the Blippi Monster Truck song. I don't really want to hear any Blippi songs, but we may. And then Taylor Swift, you just never know when you're about to get into like a 90-minute straight Taylor Swift deal. And it's just a tough scene. You're between like Opelousas and Alexandria.
We got to get some Goo Goo Dolls in there, Hunt. I mean, we got to get
one can hope. I'd really like to listen to the D1 Baseball SEC preview podcast. Do you think that's going to happen?
That might be asking for a bit much there.
How is that different than Taylor Swift?
Well, I don't think that anyone besides yourself will be interested in the D1 baseball.
You think anybody else is interested in the Blippy Excavator song?
Well, yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure your son will.
I just got a text message from one of the people that's going to be in the car that said Taylor Swift or bust, which is not a promising sign for the next 4 hours of my life.
I'm guessing that wasn't from Myers.
No,
I don't think
he doesn't often text.
I didn't
does
think so.
not. He's good at hanging the phone up. He can press the red button on FaceTime and blow up a call real quick. But let's hope that things go smoothly and that there's a little bit of Goo Goo Dolls, potentially some country jams involved. Maybe I'll listen to Paul and Matt on AFR. But I think that's probably going to get squashed.
How about this though, Hunt? Shane Lowry made a hole-in-one at 7 on Pebble. He's got 3 career aces on the tour: 17 at Sawgrass, 16 at Augusta, and 7 at Pebble. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take that. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal. And Rory and Lowry both made aces yesterday.
Yeah.
Bought the media a bunch of beers. They had the thing. The little Word document said it's any of the media that's covering. The beers are on us, which is always an interesting piece to the hole-in-one puzzle.
Yeah, I don't get it. But
my only hole-in-one career was during a tournament, which was open bar. So that's the
best way to do it.
That's a thinking man's hole-in-one.
Yes.
I wasn't on the hook for anybody's cold pops after that. So yeah, we had a guy make one at a guy's trip at Stream Song, and there were like 18 of us, and we told him we had to pay for all of them. We actually had the server bring him the bill, but we didn't. We had no intention of making it. All right, I'm on the road. We'll hope there's some good music, I guess. Matt's going to drive you home on After Further Review coming up next. I'm off for the weekend, headed to Shreveport. Next time I see you, it'll be Radio Row for the Super Bowl on Monday, same time, not the same place. Have a good weekend.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play.